All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to I Hate It Here. I am your host, Chad Cushins. I am a Long Island-based journalist and independent filmmaker. And if you're listening, I want to welcome you and thank you for listening. This is our third broadcast of the show. We started 2 weeks ago, and I'm very happy and surprised, shocked, the whole deal to announce that with last week's episode, we had actually tripled our numbers, which is pretty exciting. We had 3 times as many listeners, both for the live broadcast at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard on Sundays, and also as far as the downloads. We're on demand the next day, actually more immediate than that, but we've been posting it the next morning for anybody who might have missed it. You can listen to it on your iPod or whatever media listening device you have, but it was actually a pretty successful week number-wise, and for that I also want to thank last week's guests. We had 2 very talented Long Island artists, buddies of mine, John Stack and Pete Galasso. John actually had his art show on Thursday of last week and still made time to call in. And same night I went to an art gallery show that Pete Galasso was at. So we all kind of sort of touched base afterwards. But I want to thank both of those guys because we had great numbers for it. Tonight is going to be another fun episode. We got 2 guests, as always. My co-host, best friend Russ Papia, who's the host of Radioactive on Friday afternoons, will be calling in a few minutes. And halfway through, we're going to talk with one of my really good buddies, Will Puntarich. He is a comic book artist, illustrator, writer. Also has worked for a number of different advertising companies. So we're going to talk a little bit about media, American advertising, and what we deem propaganda, so that should always be interesting. Will's very opinionated, so am I, and very political, so that should be cool. But we do, in fact, have our first guest of the evening here, my friend, as always, Russ Papia, who's the host of Radioactive. Are you there, buddy?
How you doing, Chad?
What's going on, dude? How are you? Thanks for being on, as always.
Oh, it's great to be back. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
Of course. No, I'm doing well. This is I'm getting more and more excited every week with the show. It's been going great. How's yours going?
Mine's going great. I really I was very pleased with the second episode this week on Friday. Fridays at 5, we have Radioactive. And we were able to talk about entertainment this week. We were able to talk about the Oscars, and, we were talking about Hollywood.
Oh, there was plenty of stuff this week to talk about, buddy.
Yeah, and Charlie Sheen as usual, and we had a few guests, including yourself, and it's coming along.
Oh,
Who would have thunk? So
winning. We're all winning. Everything's winning now.
Yeah, we're winning. Yes. Oh man, how you guys doing this week?
It's going to be a lot of fun. Well, I've been out of the loop for the weekend, so I don't know if Charlie Sheen did something completely and utterly disastrous, or he announced that he's making another major league. I don't know what's going on, but I expect that tomorrow, first thing in the morning, there's going to be some horrendous news. I'm so excited. I still am.
I heard he's following in our footsteps and
is that right?
having his own webcast these days called In Sheen's Corner. Isn't that great? Oh man! And apparently, yes, he was talking about winning for the duration of the show, and I don't know.
Now, Russ, I have to ask you, buddy. You're another media whore like myself, and news junkie. Do you tweet? Do you tweet? Because I don't tweet.
That's not my deal.
I don't tweet. But Charlie Sheen tweeted, and within like 24 hours, he got over 1 million people that want to be his friend.
Yeah, so maybe it should be my deal. Yeah, I hear you. On that. He is the topic of the moment, and
not bothering me, by the way.
He will, from what I hear, he is making Major League 3 and training for it with Brie Olson very, very regularly. So,
just training with the goddesses.
Yeah, right.
Dude,
yeah.
I don't know why everybody's on his case. Everybody's like, he lives with 2 women. But didn't, Hugh Hefner have a reality show a few years ago where he lived with 3?
Yeah, he's like God. He's like God, though,
But that's not fair. You can't draw a line. At one time, he was 45.
Yeah, yes, that's true. I know. I think because of the drug use and all of his incidents have gone public, the Plaza deal. People are drawn to that. They want to see what's going to happen next. It's episodic in its own way. And
Let me ask you
but
serious question.
we'll see what happens. Go ahead.
this actually will kind of sort of tie together when Will calls in, and I'm being dead serious. The whole thing with Sheen and how it's covered in the news, and he's never been this famous. Do you think it's because our American culture, I'm serious, wants to make heroes so we can tear them down, or is it that he represents like carnal shit that we all want to do and we can't? Which one is it? Do we like seeing him self-destruct, or do we wish that we could be there to self-destruct with him?
Both, but mostly they want to see him fall dead. I believe so.
I want to see him win, and I'm not doing that because that's his new word. It's not offending me.
I'm not putting myself up on a high horse. I'd like to see him win too, personally. And I'm not saying, I'm better than anybody else following the situation that wants to see him, crash for enjoyment purposes. But I would like to see him come out of this. I don't want to see him. I've been talking about it on my show too, and
I know.
I said in my last episode, and I might have changed even my views since Friday, if you could believe that.
Well, no,
he seemed quite burnt. Hang on, he seems quite burnt out, and if somebody abuses drugs to the point where they're that fried, it shouldn't be glorified, But I have been since he's everywhere. I've had more of a shot to really see him. I hope he does win. If he's not fried totally and can clean himself up, I'd always like to see a new hero instead of a fallen,
instead of a heel,
somebody that's
a fallen warrior,
fallen from grace.
I don't know what he's calling himself now. He's creating magic and all that shit. But
but he has his own show like us, so
he's not. I know. I love it. Yeah. But in all fairness, he's not doing anything that Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Jimmy Page, they all did this, but they weren't they weren't showing off. And I think, what did he say right before he did this ridiculous media blast? He said publicly, he's like, they've awoken like a sleeping tiger.
Yeah, tiger's blood.
And I think he's purposely going out of his way to be as obnoxious as possible. I honestly think that. I think that the whole thing with the interviews is that he was going through withdrawal. If he cleans up and all of a sudden he just keeps acting lunatic but it has nothing to do with drugs, everyone will know he's putting on a complete act, and I honestly think he's probably going to be more famous than he has ever been. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's going to just be very funny because there's nothing that they can do about it.
Over the weekend, there was strong speculation that 2.5 Men was going to probably at some point work back into the schedule, and that it was going to be saved. And if that happens, and if he does go back to work,
they're bleeding money because of it.
And if he does win in his battle, he's going to be pretty high up, and for everybody to see, so
it won't offend me. But that's one thing. Now, the second thing is that you and I went to the movies this weekend.
Yep.
We had a lot of fun, and I can't help it. I'd like to bring up this movie. As a matter of fact, we went to go see Take Me Home Tonight. The only complaint I had about it is that they don't actually play that song. But
it was really funny. It was weird. We had some other great tunes from the '80s, Take Me Home Tonight. We were.
No, I actually liked it a lot. I think it was a lot better than it deserved to be. But this is the point that I wanted. I brought it up for a reason. Everybody's complaining about Sheen and all that, and it really is the drug use that's getting him the harshest criticism. Now, the ironic thing is, Take Me Home Tonight, I don't know how the numbers are going to be, because it is rated R, yet it's aimed at teens, and that's always the kiss of death. But this is actually, it's smarter than it should be. It's not an homage to the 80s. It looks like an 80s film, like they did a decent job. But he was being interviewed, and Topher Grace said they shot the movie 3 full years ago. Like, it was supposed to come out at the same time that he was doing Spider-Man.
Right.
But he was speculating that the reason that they didn't know how to market it is that it's got a lot of drug use. There was a lot of coke in the movie, and it's made to be funny. So it came out on the same weekend where everybody's talking about whether or not it's acceptable for somebody to use these types of drugs because, Sheen's being responsible, but nobody's saying he is. And this movie was pretty much shelved for really the same purpose. And I don't know, it's just ironic to me. It dawned on me that it's the same reason.
Yeah, I mean, people like to people like to follow it, but I mean those big companies have a problem. Like I remember talking to you about this. I remember talking to you about this before the show today, and a big point was that Topher Grace never did it. You know, I mean, we're not.
In the film,
I'm not trying to.
He's the character who doesn't. They don't want the lead protagonist. They don't want the everyman to be seen doing it. So it's the goofball buddy who does it for the entire film, and it's very funny. But they don't do that type of humor anymore. The most that you'll see is, you know, Judd Apatow's movies get away with tons of like pot jokes. But you never make jokes. It's completely taboo to make jokes about hard narcotics.
They are. They're very
I believe
touchy with
that's the reason.
Yeah, and you know, it was a really good example. Topher Grace never touched it. It was the goofball buddy, and you know, I mean, those big studios, you know, they're very touchy, you know, and they're touchy because of hard narcotics, and I think that's what, you know, obviously Mr. Sheen has run into, you know, with his show.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
It's just so funny that the people come down. I don't know. It could sound like I'm all over the place, but the fact is that the people who are running the studios, the people who are producing, are, you know, historically they're the baby boomers, who are the ones who made all the drug use as popular. You know, it was weed and pills and psychedelics. We're talking about our parents' generation. Then in the 80s they were the yuppies, and they're the ones who were paying for the coke at the time. And now that they're in charge of everything, they don't know how to market the fact that these things are no longer really taboo in the public eye. And of course, I'm not condoning it, but it's, you know, if it's on TV or if it's in movies, they always have a problem with it, and I find it really, really funny. But no, I enjoyed the movie immensely, and what I liked about it, it was very much like the Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and it was like the Days of Confused, where it was the time capsule. I thought it was so much better than I thought it was going to be. So
yes. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I especially enjoyed the ending where she pulls up a Mercedes car from License to Drive, and we both realized that
nobody in that theater knew what they were looking at, I think, except the two of us, as usual.
Hey, it's Mercedes' car.
It was Heather Graham's car. They pulled up in the exact same thing, and I mean, this movie could have starred John Cusack, so I enjoyed it. And the preview sucked because I hold by my saying that movies are stupid. But this was a one-time deal. I wanted to see a pseudo sequel to 70 shows, you know, starring dumbass.
It very much was. And another spoiler, you know, they had Kyle Reese playing his father.
Michael Biehn plays he pretty much plays the Red
Michael
Foreman
Biehn.
role.
Yeah, it was playing Red Foreman. He wrote and produced this movie, correct?
Co-wrote, co-produced, yeah. But,
you know, it did at times feel like 370 shows episodes. It was like a sequel to 70 show. It was enjoyable. You know, I have fun with those. I enjoyed it too.
So I got to ask you, what's going on with Radioactive this week?
This week, I am hearing that we're going to have a correspondent from the PAX Festival. Tom Jennings, another close friend of ours,
one of our best friends,
is going up to Boston. He's shipping on up, and he along with a few others are going to be going to that festival. And we're going to be dealing with the video game industry, and he's going to have hopefully some good news for us. And we look forward to that because it's our first road report from Tom Jennings. So
I'm very excited about how this is going to work on Radioactive.
Yeah.
So Radioactive is Fridays, 5 p.m. on Blog
Thank you
Talk.
very much. Yes, it is. You know, and I'm really having fun, and I hope to have all your listeners listen to my show as well. And I enjoy being here as usual.
Thanks, buddy. I'm gonna let you go because second guest Will Puntarich is beeping in right now, so we're gonna talk about media propaganda, and that most likely means Charlie Sheen.
Talk to you next week, buddy.
You got it, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, brother. Let's see. Is Will on the line?
Will's on the line.
What's up, buddy? How are we doing? Welcome to the show, and thanks for being here.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm much obliged.
This is a very nice surprise. Unfortunately, you and I, we did get to talk this afternoon, but we haven't really caught up with each other in a long period of time. But for anybody who's listening, Will's been a very close friend of mine for years. We worked on a couple of comic book projects together. I was very flattered when you asked me to help write it. And you ended up going to art school for really all kinds of graphic design, and now you work in advertising.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like advertising.